Dad, don't come for Christmas this year. My in-laws think you don't fit the vibe. The room suddenly froze. Only the faint strains of Silent Night came from the little speaker I'd given them last year. I'd spent weeks prepping the turkey my late wife used to make, wrapping gifts for my grandchild and picking the tie my son once said, "makes you look younger." And with one sentence, all the warmth I'd waited for all winter vanished like frost on a window. My son said, "My in-laws aren't used to your simple style." I swallowed hard, nodded, and quietly stood up. The December wind cut my skin, but inside me, oddly, I was calm. As the door clicked shut behind me, I dialed the phone and said evenly, "Cancel the entire mortgage on Marcus Graves's house. This Christmas I won't have a party, but they won't have a roof." No one in that house knew I'd just started a Christmas of settling debts with the truth. If you're still here, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Every comment helps this story reach more hearts, and if it moved you, give it a like so others can find it too. My name is Lionel Graves, 68, a retired carpenter living on the outskirts of Denver, Colorado. I worked with my hands my whole life, sweating over each board to provide for my family. The small house where I live, 2 bedrooms, weathered shingles, windows facing the Rockies, used to be home for me and Nadine, my wife of more than 40 years. She passed 8 years ago from heart disease, leaving me alone with memories and one request: take care of Marcus. No matter what he's like, he's still our son. I kept that promise. Maybe I kept it too long. Marcus is my only child. I used to think he was gentle, decent, driven. Then he married Serena Vale, youngest daughter of Victor and Elaine Vale, a wealthy family, the type who drink wine at lunch and talk art over dinner. Once Serena arrived, Marcus's life changed. My house, the one Nadine and I sweated to build, suddenly became too small, too old, too plain. I remember that evening when Marcus came for dinner and said, "Dad, Serena wants a home that fits her family. I'm looking at a place in Boulder, but we need more for the down payment." I didn't hesitate. I refinanced my own house to help them. $47,000 from the equity Nadine and I had saved, plus a new loan. "Just a few years, Dad," Marcus said. "I'll pay you back later." I believed him. A father wants to believe his son, but those few years dragged on. When Serena complained about the old kitchen, I covered $22,000 for the remodel. When she wanted a professional mixer to start a baking class, I paid for that too. Then came hardwood floors, velvet drapes, a marble dining table, even the sofa I was sitting on when my son told me I wasn't welcome. Every piece carried traces from my bank account. I glanced around that room as I stood up, saw every item I'd paid for, but couldn't find myself anywhere. In the family photos on the wall, my face showed up in the first frame, smaller in the next, then gone in the last. I was nothing but a faded shadow behind the new, classy people. I stepped onto the porch where Denver's cold wind swept past bare maples. Christmas lights from nearby houses glowed on a thin layer of snow, beautiful enough to sting the eyes. I thought of Nadine, how she lit candles, set the table, hummed softly while she cooked. This year I'd hoped to eat Christmas dinner with my grandson, tell a few old stories, and bring a little real warmth into Marcus's house. But maybe simple wasn't welcome anymore. I drove home without the radio. The city felt unusually quiet, strings of lights twinkling like they were mocking a lonely old man. I wasn't angry. Honestly, it felt like a heavy fog in my chest had finally lifted. In its place was clarity. It was time to stop. Back home, I made coffee and sat at the little desk in my living room. I keep a sealed brown envelope there, Nadine's handwriting still on it. "If one day you need to protect yourself, keep the proof." I opened it. Inside were copies of bills, transfers, bank statements, and screenshots I'd taken from Serena's social media lavish parties, vacations, luxury purchases flaunted in public. I never wanted to expose them, but I knew the time might come. Carefully, I organized each paper into a new file folder. On the corner, I wrote in black marker, "Christmas Eve, returning the truth." I knew I was preparing for a different kind of fight, not with fists, but with reason and evidence. I never had much schooling, but I understand fairness. I've paid enough to know that sometimes justice has to be built with your own two hands. Near midnight, I stepped onto the porch and watched the neighbors' lights blink. Somewhere a child laughed as snow fell, a sound I hadn't heard in my house for years. I took a long breath and went back inside. In the cabinet, I stored the phone I'd used to call the bank, proof that I'd canceled the transfer. Part of me ached, but the rest felt lighter. I set down my coffee and looked around my old but peaceful home. Something quiet stirred, not hatred, but an awakened strength. I used to think I was the sacrificial father. Now I understand that blind love can be the rope that binds your dignity. I blew out the little candle by Nadine's photo. "Did I do the right thing, honey?" I whispered. In the silence, I could almost hear her. "At last, you chose to love yourself for once." Outside, the wind picked up, carrying the scent of pine and wood smoke. I locked the door, slid the bolt, then opened my notebook and wrote the first line of the new plan. December 24th, start taking back what's fair. And just as I expected, the first call would come soon. Serena had never done anything on her own. She would need me like always. This time, I had a different answer ready. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and let go. Across town, Marcus's house blazed with light, getting ready to celebrate with the high-class family. As for me, in my quiet home, I had a candle, a cup of coffee, and a plan waiting for dawn. Tomorrow morning, when Serena called asking me to pick up her parents at the airport, I would smile, answer, and say softly, "Serena, I've got plans today." From that moment on, Christmas wouldn't be their day, it would be the day I started my life over. After Nadine's funeral, the house felt too big and too quiet. It took me weeks to get used to my own silence. No one at breakfast asking if I wanted my eggs soft or well done. The table still set for two, but I sat on just one side. At night, I turned on the TV without listening, just to fill the empty space where a person should be. In that gap, Marcus stepped in and said, half pleading, half tender, "Dad, Serena found our dream house. But we're short a bit on the down payment." That day, he said, "Dad," as sweetly as when he was a boy. My heart softened. I still remembered Nadine's eyes in her photo, gentle but firm. She always wanted me to help our son if I could. I nodded without asking much and said, "Let me handle it." 3 days later, I was at the bank signing a refinance. The young loan officer smiled and said, "Your house has strong equity. You can easily pull more than $50,000. I signed. It was the first time in my life I used my home as a tool for debt. I figured if I have it, my kids should benefit. Serena hugged me. Expensive perfume hung in the air. "You're investing in our future, Dad," she said. "Marcus and I will make you proud." I believed her. I honestly did. But investing turned out to be a fancy way of saying I became a walking wallet. Their new place in Boulder was upscale, twice the size of mine, oak floors, open kitchen, sunlit living room, a bathtub as big as a kiddie pool. I paid for most of it not once, but month after month, steady, for 5 years. $2,900 each a month. 60 months. $174,000, not including $45,000 for the down payment and $22,000 for the kitchen remodel Serena couldn't live without. I cut back on supplements, postponed replacing my old roof, and bought groceries at discount stores. Meanwhile, Serena posted photos with Italian wine, and her parents Victor and Elaine talked about contemporary art and quality of life. Every time they mentioned class, I felt a little smaller. But I kept quiet, thinking, if my kid is happy, that's enough. Every time I thought about stopping, Serena would breeze in and say softly, "You're the only one who really understands us. We're trying so hard." That line was a hook right into my guilt, the fear that if I stopped helping, Marcus would suffer. I don't know when I first started being controlled by that feeling. Then came that fateful night when Marcus said, "Dad, don't come." The guilt string snapped. That sentence blew away every reason I'd been clinging to. Suddenly, everything became crystal clear. I wasn't a father anymore, I was a funding source. I drove home empty. The night air sliced through the cracked window, cold enough to numb my hands on the wheel, but my head felt clearer than ever. I pictured Nadine's gaze, the kind that would never forgive me for letting others belittle me. If she were alive, she'd say it straight. "Lionel, you help our son, not so he can look down on you." And she'd be right. I came home and lit a small candle by her photo. The glow washed over Nadine's face until her eyes looked like they were watching me. I sat down, opened my notebook, and turned to a clean page. On top, in bold letters, I wrote, "I, Lionel Graves, am officially done funding." Then I listed each documented expense: $45,000 house down payment, $22,000 kitchen remodel, 100 kitchen, $74,000 mortgage over 60 months, $3,600 miscellaneous, mixer, drapes, dining table. Total, $244,600. I set my pen down and stared at the number like it was a mile marker ending my blindness. This wasn't help anymore, it was a one-way ticket to being despised. I understood. Kindness has a price, and I'd paid too much. Near midnight, my phone rang. Marcus. I saw his name and silenced it. I wasn't angry, just not ready to talk. I texted briefly, "I need time." For the first time, a short sentence carried so much meaning. No blame, no complaining. I was shifting from emotion to strategy. I filed the papers into a clear plastic folder and slid it into a drawer with Nadine's old photos. When I closed it, I noticed a slip of paper she'd tucked into the album. "Don't let anyone make you feel small in the house you built." I smoothed it flat and smiled a little. "I promise, Nadine," I whispered. "I won't let that happen again." That night I wrote the last line in my journal. December 23rd, end the subsidy era. December 24th, start reclaiming justice. I turned off the lights and lay down, listening to wind slide past the old window. Somewhere out there, Marcus and Serena were probably getting ready for a classy Christmas with the Vales. As for me, I felt as light as if I'd set down a lifetime burden of bowing my head. I knew Serena would call soon. She always needed me. This time, I was ready. I'm no longer the father afraid his kid might lack. I'm a man who just learned kindness only matters when it's respected. And tomorrow morning, when the phone rings, I won't rush out to be their driver. I'll pick up, calmly say, "Serena, I'm busy today. Handle it yourself." A small start, but the first step to getting back the rest of my life. Exactly 10:45 a.m. The next morning, my phone rang. The name I'd expected all night popped up. Serena Vale Graves. I answered after 3 rings. Her voice fired off fast, clipped, used to giving orders. "Dad, go pick up my parents at the airport at 2 p.m., okay? They're flying from Portland on Alaska Air Flight 447. They'll be at baggage claim Carousel 3. And wear the blue dress shirt, the soft one I bought you last year. Look presentable. Don't make us lose face." It sounded like a neat office directive. No hello, no thank you. I sipped my tea and asked evenly, "Which flight are they on again? What time do they land?" "I just told you, 2 p.m. Don't be late." They don't like waiting, especially when someone's supposed to pick them up. I could hear silverware and light laughter on her end. She was probably eating breakfast in the kitchen I'd paid to remodel. Her voice dropped, steady and instructive, like talking to an employee. "Bring water and some tissues, they're not used to Denver's dry air. And don't park in the VIP area. They'll feel awkward. Just wait outside till they call." I smiled to myself, a smile no one could hear. "All right, Serena. I'll handle it." "Good," she said, suddenly lighter. "My family's counting on you." Then she hung up. No, thank you. No pause, just the cold beep lingering in my ear. I sat still for a bit and looked out the window. The winter sky over Denver was clear. Thin sunlight laid across the street like silk. I brewed another pot of Earl Grey, bergamot floating softly. Yesterday's paper was open to the crossword. I filled in the blank. I'd left. Delayed gratification. Postponement. I chuckled. 2 words that perfectly summed up my last 5 years. Deferring joy so others could have it first. Not this time. By 2:15 p.m., I was still in my old armchair, my second cup of tea half cold. I checked the clock and pictured Victor and Elaine Vale stepping off the plane-pressed outfits, him in an Italian wool coat, her in a cashmere scarf, walking with confidence. I imagined them scanning for the family driver and finding nothing but empty space. I leaned back and looked at Nadine's photo on the wall. She'd probably smile if she saw me today, the first time I chose to sit still instead of rushing over. Around 3 p.m., my phone started buzzing. Serena called. I let it ring, watched the screen light up, then muted it. 30 minutes later, another call. Then another. Texts poured in, starting polite. Dad, where are you? Then, urgent. Dad, they're out, why aren't you here? And finally, cold and superior, you're embarrassing us. I quietly powered down my phone. Silence draped over the house like first snow hush. I brewed fresh tea, turned on afternoon jazz, and finished another crossword. Next clue, freedom liberation. I wrote it cleanly, firmly, without thinking. Around 5:30 p.m., the sun slid behind the mountains. I heard a car stop at my curb, then hurried footsteps. Hard heels smacked the concrete. A second later, my front door rattled under heavy pounding. Dennis, open up now. Serena's voice was sharp, layered over a heavier, angry male voice. I exhaled, stood, and opened the door. 3 figures crowded my porch. Victor, face flushed like he'd been drinking. Elaine, hair mussed and lips pressed thin. Serena, makeup smeared, fancy coat dusted with snow. Victor pushed straight past me without an invitation. What's wrong with you? We waited at that airport for over 3 hours. 3 hours in this cold. Do you know who we are? I looked at him and said evenly, I do, but this is my house, and you're shouting in my living room. Elaine lifted her chin, that aristocratic tone laced with anger. Your behavior is unacceptable. You humiliated our family in front of everyone. Serena cut in, voice shaking but fiery. Dad, I told you they're not used to waiting. You know how important they are to us. I stood straight and didn't answer right away. Warm light from the porch lamp fell across the floor, catching the newspaper and Nadine's photos on the wall behind me. When I spoke, my voice was low, each word clear. This is my house, and I want the 3 of you to leave. They froze. Victor stared like he'd misheard. What did you say? Leave, I repeated. Right now. No one moved. Wind slipped through the crack in the door, carrying cold and the smell of anger. Victor jabbed a finger at me, hissing. You don't know who you're messing with. I have connections. I can make you regret this. I held his gaze, calm as if talking to an old customer. Maybe. But this is still my house. Elaine shook her head and gave a thin smile. This old man is delusional. Dennis, you're destroying your reputation. I tilted my head, steady and quiet. Reputation isn't something others give me, and no one can take it from me unless I let them. Serena blinked hard, trying not to cry, but her voice stayed sharp. You'll face consequences. You embarrass this family, and I won't let it go. I nodded. Do what you think you need to. That line smothered the uproar. For a beat, all 3 stood still. Then Victor pulled his wife and daughter toward the door. You'll regret this, Dennis Graves, he threw over his shoulder, voice cold as the night air. We'll make sure everyone knows what kind of man you are. The door clicked shut. Their car sped off, leaving a quiet, cold space behind. I looked around and felt the house grow larger, the air cleaner. I leaned back into my chair and felt my heart beat steady like still water. I knew they wouldn't stop. Arrogant people rarely back down quietly. They'd find another way, and that way, I guessed, would show up in the papers soon enough. I poured more tea, set the cup on the table, then opened the file cabinet. The stacks of papers, bills, and statements I'd kept ready were lined up like chess pieces. I sat down, switched on the desk lamp, and started sorting page by page. That night, the room held only the rustle of paper and the faint scent of Earl Grey. I worked slowly, carefully, like an old craftsman preparing for his own day in court. Because I knew the real fight was only just beginning. 3 days after the blow-up at my house, I woke late in the morning and discovered I'd made the news. An old friend, Harold, the owner of the lumber store I used to contract with, called, his voice half amused, half apologetic. "Lionel, you doing okay? I just saw your name in the Mile High Chronicle. They're saying you abandoned 2 elderly people at the airport during a snowstorm." I sat straight up. A snowstorm? It was 55 degrees in Denver that day. Yeah, that's what struck me as odd. But the article has all these details, and a photo of you. I opened my laptop and went to the paper's website. A big, bold headline punched me in the eyes. "Man abandons elderly in-laws in a winter storm, an outrageous act." Right under it was a photo of me taken almost 7 years ago. Bad angle, bad lighting, eyes squinting like I was scowling. Byline: Paige Larkin, lifestyle editor. I read slowly, each word like a small knife slicing my dignity. On Sunday afternoon, Victor and Elaine Vale, a couple visiting from Portland, were left for hours at Denver International Airport in dangerous weather conditions, when a family member failed to show up as promised. Dangerous weather conditions? I laughed out loud. That day was sunny, dry, and warm enough for December that you didn't need a heavy coat. The article continued in a pitying tone. The couple, both in their 60s, had to take a taxi home while their relative, Mr. Lionel Graves, was reportedly becoming unstable after months of unusual behavior. Family members expressed concern for his mental health. I stopped reading and chuckled softly. So that's the route they chose, turn me into the senile old man. An old trick, but effective. In this society, slap a mentally unstable label on an older person and the whole world tilts toward the other side. I read down to the end, where Serena was quoted. "We've always loved and respected Mr. Lionel, but sometimes he can be unpredictable. We just want to help him." A perfect sentence seeming compassionate while driving the knife of doubt deeper. I scrolled to the comments. Someone wrote, "Poor couple, abandoned in a storm. What kind of person does that?" Another added, "Maybe he needs a guardian. He shouldn't be living alone." I closed the laptop and sat still. I wasn't angry anymore, just a cold sadness and a sharp, clear resolve. I'd had enough of being looked down on. That afternoon, I brewed a pot of black coffee, sat at my desk, and opened my notebook. On the cover, the words, "Christmas Eve returning the truth," now felt like a reminder. I grabbed a red pen, opened the printed article, and started marking every false point, every lie. Snowstorm. Red line. Note in the margin 55 degrees. Sunny source. National Weather Service. Abandoned at the airport. Double underline. Note, I never agreed to pick them up. Mentally unstable. Big circle note. Age smear, how lovely. When I was done, the page looked like a map of sins. I smiled slightly. If justice won't come to me, I'll take it to their dinner table. I opened my computer and started digging into the writer Paige Larkin. Her profile was full of good deed stories, family heartwarmers, and ads for imported wine from a brand that sponsors the paper. She had no personal reason to come after me, but Victor did. I remembered what he said at my door. "I have connections." True, he wasn't bluffing. I checked Victor Vale's LinkedIn under Recent Connections, there it was, Paige Larkin. And on Marcus's page I saw, Marcus Graves has connected with Paige Larkin, lifestyle editor at Mile High Chronicle. Everything clicked into place like puzzle pieces. They built this story step by step just to crush my reputation. The phone rang again. This time Harold sent a photo of the print edition. My picture took up half a page, with the caption, "Once a well-known carpenter in Denver, now living alone, being monitored by family for signs of mental instability." I burst out laughing. A dry laugh, but somehow relieving. Because they'd just made their biggest mistake, they thought I'd stay quiet. I didn't go online to argue. I didn't need to fight with words. Instead, I started building a detailed 5-year timeline. The day I refinanced my old house. The day I transferred $45,000 for the down payment. The $22,000 for the kitchen remodel. 60 mortgage payments, $2,900 each. Plus the smaller items, mixer, drapes, furniture. Total, more than $240,000. I printed every statement, clipped each month, and wrote notes in the margins. Then I went to Serena's Facebook public because she loves flaunting achievements. The photos lined up. Serena raising a glass of champagne at an Italian restaurant. Serena taking a selfie in the marble-tiled kitchen. Serena posting a diamond bracelet with the caption, "A treat for a year of hard work." Serena writing, "Grateful for our beautiful home." I downloaded them, printed in color, and slid them into the file. When I finished, I leaned back and looked at the stack covering the table. This wasn't just proof, it was their indictment. Outside, late sunlight slanted through the window and warmed the wood grain. I sipped the now cold coffee, its bitterness tasted just right. I wasn't shaking with anger anymore, only the calm of someone who finally saw the board. I picked up the red pen and wrote one more line at the bottom of the plan. They want the public? I'll give them the public. But this time, the truth will be laid out on their dinner table. I turned to the wall calendar, circled December 24th, and added a small note beside it. 6:30 p.m. showtime. I still remember the feeling as I slashed red through each lie. It wasn't anger anymore. It was how I took back my humanity. Have you ever had to take back something someone stole from you, your reputation, your trust, your respect? If you have, leave a few lines so I'll know your story found its own justice too. This Christmas, no headline will be strong enough to smear me, because I'll tell the story myself with facts, with numbers, and with their own words. I folded the calendar page and slipped it into my jacket pocket. A draft slid through the door crack, carrying the scent of pine and far-off church bells. I smiled slightly and looked out at the street. All right, Victor, you want fame? I'll help you get it in a way you'll never forget. On the morning of December 24th, I woke earlier than usual. Denver's pale dawn slipped through the blinds, laying a quiet blue-gray over the room. On the table, the files I'd arranged the night before sat in neat stacks. Each one was a piece of the truth. No accusations, no venom, just dates, amounts, and images that couldn't be denied. I splashed cold water on my face and looked at the man in the mirror. More gray hair, deeper eyes, but steady. I put on my navy suit, the one I wore to Nadine's funeral. Back then, I buried my wife. This time, I was burying the role of the dependent they'd forced on me for 5 years. Every detail on the table was set with care. 11 files, because, according to the guest list Serena bragged about online, there would be exactly 11 at Christmas dinner. The Vales, a few of Victor's business friends, and some classy neighbors. Each file contained bank statements printed month by month with the line "Mortgage Payment, Marcus and Serena Graves" highlighted in red. Invoices and receipts, down payment, kitchen remodel, mixer, drapes, furniture. Serena's social media photos, fancy restaurants, diamond jewelry, and the caption, "A treat for a year of hard work." The Mile High Chronicle article, every sentence annotated, with my handwritten notes, fabricated, false. I'm not mentally ill, I'm clearer than ever. I sealed each one with a gray cover and neat label. Payments by Lionel Graves for Marcus and Serena Graves, 2018-2023. No flourishes, no spite. Just truth, dry, cold, and clear as granite. I added a printout from the Denver Weather Service for the day of the alleged snowstorm. 55 degrees, clear skies, light wind. At the bottom, I drew a red line under. There was no storm, only lies. On the table lay a seating chart. Victor and Elaine at the head. Serena to the right, next to Marcus. 3. High society guests opposite. 2 neighbors in the middle to ensure the news spread fast. I numbered each file by seat so when I handed them out, the story would ripple outward from the center like dropping a stone in a pond. I learned that from years negotiating contracts. Truth isn't enough. You need timing and audience. When everything was in place, I opened my laptop and retyped the open letter, the first page each guest would see when they opened the file. When reputation is smeared, truth is the only remedy. I didn't come here for revenge, but to defend the only thing I have left, my self-respect as a father, a man who's been treated like a walking wallet. I read it twice, then signed at the bottom, Lionel Graves. After that, I practiced my delivery. In my head, I pictured the table freezing when I walked in. No trembling, no rambling, just 3 sentences clear and short. I stood, picked up the dark brown leather briefcase, opened and closed it, over and over. The 3 lines, I'd say, were written on a small slip I'd taped inside my wallet. I'm not apologizing. I'm only bringing you what the paper forgot to evidence. And after tonight, no one in this house can say they didn't know the truth. I looked at the slip, folded it, and slid it back. Under the last line, I'd written 3 words in all caps: stay calm, go slow, be clear. My final reminder to myself. In the afternoon, I fully charged the small clip-on camera I'd used back when I did carpentry, quiet but crisp. I set it in my suit pocket, checked the angle, tested the audio. If they threw me out, if there was a scuffle or lies, I'd still have proof. Truth shouldn't just be said, it should be recorded. Around 5:30 p.m., I brewed a black coffee and looked out the window. Denver lit up. A dusting of snow covered the sidewalks. Church bells carried in the distance, mixed with kids' laughter. Somewhere people were celebrating a proper Christmas while I prepared for a Christmas of justice. I opened the closet, took out the scarf Nadine had knitted, and wrapped it around my neck. The wool was worn, but the faint scent calmed me. I murmured, "Nadine, if you saw me tonight, you'd probably laugh." "I know. But I have to do this." On the table, I added one last thing to the briefcase, a photo of Marcus as a child, taken on the little wooden bench I built. The 5-year-old boy in the picture grinned, holding a tiny hammer, eyes bright with pride. I stared at it. "I'm not going to destroy you, Marcus," I said softly. "I'm coming to teach you the lesson you need." At 10 to 7, I buttoned my coat and laced my shoes. Outside, winter wind hissed through the pines, carrying the smell of fresh snow. I grabbed my keys, then stopped. No need. Their house was a 15-minute walk, and I wanted my mind clear. Before leaving, I glanced back one last time. Everything in my home sat neat and warm. The little tree in the corner had just a few old ornaments, the ones Nadine loved. I turned off the lights, leaving only the candle by her photo. "I'm going now, Nadine." Outside, the sky was ink black, but the streetlights drew a path through the frost. Each step, my shoes tapped the sidewalk in a steady rhythm like a calm heartbeat. I reached Kendall Yards at 6:25 p.m. Houses glowed bright, laughter spilling from windows. Marcus's house shone the most, all dressed up with wreaths and golden window light. I looked up. The front door was unlocked. I smiled faintly. Serena once bragged to her friends, "This neighborhood's so safe you don't even need to lock your door. Safe if you've never met someone like me." I tightened my grip on the briefcase and took a deep breath. Pine resin and cold air cleared my head. Showtime had arrived. Tonight, amid the lights and wine, they'd learn what truth looks like when you can't dress it up with words. 6:45 p.m. December 24th. All of Kendall Yards looked like a glowing Christmas postcard. Warm windows, music, and laughter floating out. But Marcus's house stood out, the LED wraps on the porch, the giant tree lighting the whole entry. The driveway was full. A Lexus, a BMW, a white Range Rover from the Vales. I paused at the gate, straightened my collar. A breeze rattled the pine boughs. Butter and cinnamon drifted from inside. The scent of Christmas, warm, sweet, and false. I stepped to the front door. The handle was cold, but the door opened, just as I'd expected. A wave of heat spilled out, carrying the smell of buttery turkey and expensive wine. Laughter, clinking glasses, and Serena's bright, familiar voice. "Yes, Mom and Dad. I used a new recipe this year, lemon butter and rosemary, just like Bella Vista." I pushed the door open and walked in. The laughter stopped on a dime. 11 faces turned at once. Time locked in place between scented candles and a soft, silent night. Marcus stood at the head of the table, wine glass midair, his face draining like he'd seen a ghost. Serena froze, her red wine hanging mid-gesture, eyes wide. Victor and Elaine sat across, looking like they'd just seen someone return from the dead. The other guests, the people of class, glanced at each other, lost, not understanding what was happening. I closed the door gently and didn't speak. I walked toward the table, my shoes thudding softly on the wood floor, matching the slow, steady beat of my heart. I set the brown leather briefcase on the marble sideboard next to the candles and gravy boat. Then I spoke, calm and low. "Sorry to come uninvited, but I'm here to take back what your article stole my reputation." The room went still. Only the clock ticked, and the background music whispered in the corner. Serena tried to speak, but her voice caught. Marcus stood like a statue, eyes down. I opened the case and pulled out the first file. "This one's for Mr. and Mrs. Vale," I said, placing it in front of them. Then I handed files to each person, their high society guests, the very faces that had shared the moral tale about me. Each file landed with a soft thump, but in that room it sounded like a gavel. "In there," I said, "you'll find 5 years of what I paid for this house. 60 mortgage payments totaling $174,000, plus $45,000 for the down payment, $22,000 for the kitchen, and a long list of other costs. Every figure bears a bank stamp. Every dollar came from my account." No one answered. Only the sound of pages turning slow, steady, then stopping. A salt and pepper bearded man, apparently a friend of Victor's, frowned and asked, "Are these numbers real?" I pointed to the blue ink stamp at the bottom of each statement. "Real. First Colorado Bank. You can call to verify right now if you want." I pulled the newspaper from my briefcase and unfolded it in the middle of the table. "And this," I said, "is Paige Larkin's article, the one everyone here has probably read." I set the paper down, each red mark clear. False, distorted, out of context, lie. Snowstorm? That day was 55 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny, according to the National Weather Service. Mentally unstable. "I'm perfectly fine. I just don't want to be a servant anymore." Serena shot to her feet, her voice shaking. "Dad, this—" I raised my hand. "Don't interrupt me. There's one more thing." I opened my tablet and cast to the living room TV screenshots from her own Facebook. Each image appeared like evidence. Serena toasting with champagne at an Italian restaurant. Serena posing in the kitchen I paid for. Serena showing off a new ring with the caption, "A treat for a year of hard work." The final image came up. A status posted the same month I paid their utility bill. Our beautiful home. So blessed. I spoke softly, but every word landed. That month, I ate sandwiches 3 days in a row. And you treated yourself. The dining room felt like the warmth had been sucked out. The golden lights reflected off the glassware, cold as metal. Victor tried a tight smile. "Mr. Graves, this isn't the place." I looked straight at him. "Not the place to tell the truth? You chose the newspaper to smear me. I'm choosing this dinner table to set it right." A silver-haired woman, apparently a friend of Elaine's, lowered her voice. "Serena, are these things real?" No one answered. Marcus stared down, gripping his glass with both hands. I gathered the remaining files, set them in the center of the table, and said evenly, quietly, "These are the invoices for the silence I used to pay for, and today is the last day." I turned to Marcus. "Son," I said, low but not angry, "I hoped you'd learn how to be a decent man. Maybe you need to see consequences to understand what self-respect is." No one could get a word out. Serena sank into her chair, face pale. Elaine covered her mouth. Victor looked around for allies and found only averted eyes. I closed my briefcase and said one last line. "Please, go on with your party. Enjoy the last dinner I ever paid for." Then I turned and headed for the door. Behind me, the murmurs rose soft at first, then louder. Someone said, "Unbelievable." Someone else muttered, "I thought he was sick." A woman's voice trembled. "Oh God, Paige is going to get sued." I opened the door. The cold Christmas night swept in, carrying the smell of snow and distant church bells. Warm yellow light spilled behind me, and in that moment, I felt like I was stepping out of a house I once loved to take myself back. I glanced once at Marcus. His eyes were unfocused, his mouth parted like he wanted to speak, but I only shook my head. "Merry Christmas, son," I said. "May God give you a memory long enough to remember tonight." I walked out. The door closed behind me, cutting off the noise, leaving only the wind and the footsteps of a man who had ended 5 years of endurance and was starting a new year with the freedom of truth. The next Christmas morning, I slept in. Winter light slipped through the old curtains and glowed on the living room wall. Everything in my house was strangely quiet. No phone screaming off the hook, no rescue texts or demands. Only silence, the sound I spent 5 years to earn back. I brewed a pot of black coffee and sat by the window. Outside, snow began to fall lightly, each small flake glinting in the dim light. I imagined Marcus's place must be silent too, the smell of stale wine and a half-finished dinner lingering on the tablecloth. My phone buzzed. A string of messages arrived at once. The first was from Carol, Elaine's close friend and a member of the Ladies of Grace Club. Her message was short, no exclamation marks, no flourish. "Mr. Graves, I owe you an apology. I believed that article. I didn't realize the truth was different. I read it but didn't reply." Still, a small ease moved through my chest. After Carol came 2 more, Lydia and Francis, also from Elaine's charity circle, saying much the same. "Sorry, we misunderstood." They didn't say much, but I knew in Elaine's world, a message like that meant collapse. By noon, Harold told me 2 guests from last night quietly deleted their Serena's grand dinner check-in photos from Facebook. The original shot, wine glasses raised with the caption, "A classy Christmas dinner at the Graves residence," was gone. But the internet doesn't forget that fast. Neighbors had already screenshotted, shared, and talked. On Nextdoor, the neighborhood app, the neighborhood chat lit up. One post read, "Heard someone handed out financial files at a dinner last night. Who actually paid for that party?" Another comment, "Apparently the homeowner's dad. My friend's friend works at a bank." And another chimed in, "I don't know who's right, but it's sad when money and pride kill a family." I didn't feel angry reading it. It wasn't smearing, it was people starting to wake up. That afternoon, Marcus called. Once, twice, then 3 times. I watched his name light the screen but didn't pick up. I knew if I answered, he'd say things I wasn't ready to forgive. I needed time and distance. A few hours later, Victor Vale texted a long message, opening with, "You crossed a line. I'll sue you for trespassing and defamation." Before I could respond, my former lawyer, Ben Kruger, called, a smile in his voice. "Lionel, I just saw a copy of Victor's message. Don't worry. Unlocked door, no property damage, no threats. If he sues, he'll just smear himself." I chuckled. "Thanks, Ben. I'm not planning to sue anyone. Let me keep a file anyway. This is more fun than my Aspen vacation." That evening, I got an email from a familiar name, Paige Larkin. "Mr. Graves, I've been asked to review the recent article. I'd like to hear the other side of the story. Could you share any relevant information or documents?" I didn't write a word back. I just attached a zip file with all the evidence: statements, invoices, photos, and the marked-up article. Nothing else. 15 minutes later, she replied with a single line, "Thank you. I understand." 3 days later, a small, half-hearted correction ran on page 5 of the Mile High Chronicle. Regarding the December 21st article, "Man abandons in-laws in a snowstorm. The paper acknowledges certain details were not fully verified. We apologize for any confusion." That was it. No direct apology, no mention of my name, nothing to salvage Victor's standing. I didn't need more. Sometimes one small line is enough to crack a big mask. Meanwhile, Serena posted an emotional Facebook status. "Family is a test. No one's perfect. But we still have to learn to forgive." Under it was a broken heart and an old photo of her with Marcus and both sets of in-laws, smiling in front of the tree. The post lasted less than 2 hours. She deleted it once she saw the Streisand effect kicking in, people dragging up old photos, swarming the comments, asking about the bills behind those smiles. The more she deleted, the more they talked. The quieter she got, the louder the story grew. I stayed offline. I sat still and finished the cold coffee. A strange feeling settled in, not gloating, just relief. Things were falling back into place without me pushing. Late that night, I stepped into the backyard. A thin layer of snow dusted the old wooden fence. Warm light from the neighbor's house spilled across it. I stood there, breathing deep, letting the cold rinse the weight from my chest. No more demanding calls, no more belittling words, no more role as the easy-to-push father. Denver was quiet, only distant highway noise and wind through the pines. I looked up at the falling flakes and felt something odd, as if Nadine were smiling from somewhere above. "Softly," I said. "See, Nadine? I finally kept the promise. No one makes me small in the house I built." I stood a while longer, then went inside. On the table, my files now rested in a small wooden box, lid closed, sealed. I didn't need to look again. Everything was clear. I went to bed early, for the first time in years without setting an alarm. But 3 months later, on a March morning, snow melting and birds back in the yard, life's own alarm rang. A knock from the mailman. I opened the door. He handed me a thick envelope stamped in red from Wells Fargo. The headline in cold block letters: "Notice of Default, Mortgage Delinquency Notice." I stared at it a long time. No surprise, no satisfaction. Just truth, finally coming to the door of people who had ignored it. The bank's letter sat on my table like a cold stone. I reread the header: "Notice of Default." Below were neat, emotionless figures: 3 missed payments, total past due, $8,400. Cure period, 14 days from the date of this notice, or foreclosure will proceed. Black ink on white paper, but to me, it was the period at the end of a 5-year illusion. That afternoon, my phone exploded with calls. Serena called non-stop, unknown numbers, blocked numbers, office numbers. I blocked them all. Her texts tangled like a knot of thread. Dad, please pick up. They could lose the house. I know I was wrong, but please help Marcus. I didn't respond. Their pleas always started with fear of losing what they had, not remorse for what they'd done. 2 days later, Victor and Elaine vanished from every channel. No emails, no calls. They'd once sworn they'd sue me. Now they were silent, as if we'd never met. I know their type. They stay close only to those who can still protect their image. When trouble hits, they're the fastest to pull away. By Thursday night, there was a knock at my door. I opened it, and there stood Marcus. He looked hollowed out, wrinkled suit, loose tie, dark circles like he hadn't slept in days. Denver's night was cold, but sweat beaded on his brow. "Dad," he said quietly, "we need to talk." I stepped aside and motioned him in. No hug, no greeting, just a small nod. Marcus sat, hands laced together. The room smelled like old coffee and quiet. "I got the bank's letter," he said, voice rough. "Serena's panicking. Her parents aren't speaking to us anymore." I cut in. "I know. The letter came to my house first." He looked down. "Dad, I didn't know Victor did that. I swear. I didn't know he placed the article." I met his eyes, calm. "You didn't know, or you didn't want to know." Marcus stayed silent. After a moment, his voice got smaller, more honest. "They said Mom didn't fit their class, that she knew her place. They told me if I wanted to be accepted, I had to keep my distance from the past. I didn't think they would." He stopped, voice catching. I heard Nadine's laugh in my memory, the soft sound she made when wrapping Marcus's presents at 10 years old. I asked slowly, "And you believed them?" Marcus nodded, barely. "I thought, if I tried, they'd respect me more. I didn't realize I was losing myself." I leaned back. "Not just yourself, Marcus. You lost your father." I looked into his tired eyes. "Do you know how much I paid over 5 years?" He exhaled hard, stammering. "More than 200 grand. I pulled my notebook from the drawer and opened to the neat lines. $244,600. Down payment, remodel, and mortgage. Plus 5 years of your silence while they insulted your mother." Marcus bowed his head. His shoulders shook. I heard the rush of his breath, then a choked sob. "I'm sorry, Dad. I let them make me forget who Mom was, forget what you did for me." I set the notebook down, steady, no anger left. "Marcus, forgiveness, yes. Going back, no." He looked up, eyes red. "Dad, what do you mean?" "It means I won't forget, and I won't be your payer again. You're grown. I used to think protecting you was love, but now I know sometimes love is letting you face consequences." I poured a cup of coffee and set it in front of him. "You want to start over? Fine. But there are conditions." Marcus swallowed. "What conditions?" "First, respect not just for me, but for anyone who's ever helped you. Second, initiative. You handle your life. No excuses, no hiding. Third, choose what's right, not what's convenient. Convenience is the quickest road to regret." He stayed quiet a long time, then asked softly, like a child, "Dad, did I lose you?" I looked at him, low but not cold. "No, Marcus. You gave me away. There's a difference." That line made him fold over, shoulders trembling. After a while, he whispered, "Can you give me a chance? I know I was stupid. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I don't want to lose you forever." I sighed and sat a moment. Then I set my hand on his shoulder light, but enough for him to feel it. "Marcus, I never hated you. But I won't let anyone, not even you, make me bow my head again. If you want to rebuild, you build it yourself. No borrowing, no leaning. From zero, the way I did." He nodded, tears running. "I understand. I'll try to save the house." I stood and looked out the window, snow falling thicker. "No, Marcus. That house, you handle it. I carried it long enough." Behind me, I heard the chair scrape and a heavy sigh. He stood, buttoned the wrinkled suit, hands shaking. "Dad, I'll try to do right this time." I turned and nodded. "I hope so. But remember, no one can save you if you won't stand up yourself." Marcus stepped to the door, paused and looked back, voice hoarse. "Dad, I'm still proud to be your son, even if I let you down," I answered simply. "Prove it. Not with words, with what you do." When the door closed, I watched him fade into the snow. Outside, the streetlight's pale gold washed over the white ground, sparkling like memories being rinsed clean. I stood there a long time, not happy, not sad, just calm. Because at last I'd said what I hadn't dared to say for 5 years. Kindness has limits, and fatherhood, without respect, can't be held together by money. 3 weeks after that talk, Marcus came again, not with guilt, but with worry. He held a thick packet, all numbers and bank codes. "Dad," he said, voice shaky, "the bank approved a refinance, but they require a co-signer. Could you?" I shook my head before he finished. "No, Marcus, this time you sign and carry it yourself." He looked stunned. "I just need your signature. I'll make every payment." I placed my hand on the packet and pushed it gently back to him. "I've been signing for you for 5 years. Every month, every year, I sign not with ink, but with my life. Now it's your turn to hold the pen." The room went still. Marcus lowered his head, fists tightening on the papers. After a moment, he nodded slightly, like accepting a verdict. I poured more coffee, my voice softer. "I've got a suggestion. Sell that house. Move somewhere you can actually afford. Don't live beyond your means. Don't cling to the shell of class when the inside is empty." Marcus exhaled. "Serena won't accept that. She says the Vale family's honor can't lower itself." I smiled faintly and sipped. "Honor isn't in a zip code, Marcus. It's in how you live after you lose everything." 2 weeks later, I heard Serena move back to her mother's. No goodbye, just a short note. "I can't live like this. I need an environment worthy of me." I wasn't surprised. Someone who only knows how to take will never last when asked to give. Marcus kept trying. He sold the pricey SUV and bought a used silver Ford Focus, a little dented in the rear. For the first time in his life, I saw my son driving a car he could actually pay for on time. He called me in the evening, his voice awkward but a little proud. "Dad, I just signed a new contract. One of your friends, Mr. Jackson at the construction company, took me on as a site supervisor. Not great pay, but enough to live on." I smiled, light as a breeze. "Good. Jackson needs people who know the work, not a title." "Don't forget to bow your head and learn from the start," Marcus answered softly. "I know. I'm not quitting this time." One February morning, I saw him park in front of my house, wearing a reflective vest with mud on his pant legs. He brought a tool bag and a few foil-wrapped sandwiches. I brought extra lunch. "Want one, Dad?" I took it and opened it. It was cold, but I don't think I've ever tasted anything better. In his eyes, I didn't see smugness anymore. I saw what had been missing for a long time: dignity. As for Victor Vale, the man who once threatened to sue, he'd become a joke in his circle. He tried to save face with a token lawsuit, but my attorney sent a short reply. No trespass, no material damages, no legal basis. It died on the spot. The people who used to snicker at me now avoided me at the grocery store. In the months that followed, I watched Marcus start living honestly, patching a leaky roof himself, shopping at discount stores, learning to use coupons and not minding old shirts anymore. Once, he sent me a photo of his latest electric dies bill with a text, "Paid it myself, Dad. Feels good." I answered with just 2 words, "Proud of you." I kept my distance. I didn't want to become the shadow he leaned on. I only answered when Marcus asked the right things about woodwork, cost control, or how to negotiate. I avoided emotional questions. I wanted my son to understand that love no longer meant shielding, it meant handing back responsibility. As for me, I spent time fixing up my old house. One small job at a time. New shingles, new porch light bulbs, fresh paint in the living room. No hiring, no waiting for help. I did it with my own hands, the hands that built tables and chairs, paid off debts, and once shook with anger, now steady. One evening, I signed the final materials invoice and flipped on the living room lights. Warm yellow washed over the walls. On the shelf, Nadine's little altar glowed. I looked at her photo, gentle smile, wise eyes, and said quietly, "Sweetheart, I've learned how to say no." A moth circled the lamp, then settled on the frame. Its wings flickered, throwing back a silver sheen. I smiled. For a moment, I felt Nadine was still somewhere in this house, watching me walk out of the long dark of kindness misused. I sat down and took a long breath. The air smelled like new wood, fresh paint, and peace. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about money, debt, or who owed me what. Peace, the thing people try to buy with debt, turns out to arrive only when you learn to stop at the right time. Near midnight, my phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. No flowery words, just one line. "Dad, I'm cooking dinner this weekend. Just me. Will you come?" I read it and sat still for a while. The warm light still bathed Nadine's photo. The moth stayed put. I nodded slightly and murmured to myself, "Okay, Nadine, maybe our son is learning how to be a man." Saturday night, Denver dropped to about 40 degrees Fahrenheit. No snowfall yet, but frost fogged my windshield. When I pulled up to the old red brick building on 11th Avenue, the hallway lights cast a soft yellow across worn wooden stairs. Marcus's apartment was on the second floor, small, simple, but lit. He opened the door before I could knock. "Dad, come in." I stepped inside. The smell of fried chicken and potatoes drifted through the room. No expensive candles, no chandelier or white tablecloth, just warmth, the kind that feels real. The place had 2 rooms, beige walls. In the center sat a scuffed wooden table, maybe a thrift find but polished clean. On it were 2 plates, 2 glasses of water, and a small photo of Nadine in the middle. I stood still. Her smile felt like an old greeting. Marcus fumbled. "I thought Mom should be here." Like before. I just nodded and took the chair across from him. He served the food, homemade fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and some green beans, butter aromas with a hint of burnt oil. I took a first bite, and the salt hit my tongue. Marcus watched me, worried. I went a little heavy on the salt, probably too much. I chewed slowly, then smiled. "Yeah, salty, but it's the salt of someone learning how to start over." He chuckled softly and his eyes settled. "You know, Dad, I've never really had to cook before. My whole life I just sat down at the table, never understood what it felt like to prepare for somebody else." I braced a hand on the table and glanced around the small place. "Now you know." He nodded. "And I'm ashamed, not for being broke but for thinking simple things like these were beneath me." The room went quiet for a moment, only the clock ticking and a draft sliding under the door. Marcus went on, lower. "Dad, I know I owe a lot money, fairness, and your pride. I lived in a delusion that money equals worth. I forgot people deserve respect when they live right, not when they dress right. I looked at my son without cutting in." He continued, slowly. "I made the first payment to the bank. It's small, but it's what I earned. Serena won't be back, and I think that's for the best. As for the house, I'm going to sell it. Even if I lose money, at least I'll sleep." I paused, then said, "You can make money back. Losing respect, that's the scary part." Marcus nodded, eyes red. "I get it." He reached into his pocket and set the old house key in the middle of the table. I want to give it back to you. I don't have any right to claim that place. It's not mine anymore." I looked at the key, cold against the wood. I didn't touch it. "Keep it, Marcus. Not for the house, for the memory. There was a place where you lost trust, and someday you can earn it back with your own honor. Dad, he started. I cut in, softer. Do you know how your mom's first fried chicken turned out? His eyes lifted, surprised. That night, Nadine forgot the fan. The oven smoked like crazy. The neighbors thought it was a fire and called the department. The whole kitchen went black, and you were howling for dinner. But she laughed and said, "A little burnt next time better." Marcus laughed. A real, easy laugh. Just like me tonight. I laughed too. Difference is, you didn't burn it. That's progress. The room warmed all at once. We ate in silence, not heavy silence, but the quiet of two people relearning how to speak truth without armor. Near the end, Marcus looked up, steadier. Dad, I want new rules for our family. I set my fork down. Let's hear them. First, an invitation means we show up not automatically. Second, a seat requires respect. No one forces anyone. Third, no one owes anyone money or absolution. We just try to do what's right. I nodded, feeling something open inside me. Good, Marcus. Your mom and I lived like that all our lives. Now you just have to keep it. He looked at me under the warm light, eyes shining. Thank you for still coming, even when I didn't deserve it. I smiled. You deserve it when you're willing to change. No one is born doing it right, son. A real man admits he's wrong and stands up again. When I stood to leave, he walked me to the door. Snow had started to fall, glittering under the streetlights. The cold slipped down my collar, but I felt warm, the kind of warmth that comes from seeing your son's dignity rise to his feet. On the stairs, I turned back. Through the small window, I saw Marcus clearing the table, lifting Nadine's photo to place it in the cabinet, wiping it with his sleeve. The apartment's lights spilled out, small but steady, like trust relit. As I opened my car door, my phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Next Christmas, I want to cook for you so we can try again from the start. I looked at the screen as the cold wind brushed past, and I smiled. Maybe next Christmas won't need fine wine or crystal, just a small table, 2 men, and honest words. A year went by faster than I expected. Denver slipped into light snow season again, but this time I wasn't home alone. I went to Marcus's apartment, the same place that once had only a worn table and dim bulbs, now with new curtains, a small plant by the window, and the smell of tamales filling the kitchen. I followed Mom's recipe, Marcus said, smiling as he pulled a tray from the oven. The first thing she taught me, remember? I nodded. The room filled with a gentle heat, green chiles, masa, braised meat, warmth from the oven wrapped around us. On the table were 2 plates, 2 glasses of water, and a handwritten card, Marcus's pen still stiff but neat. Thank you for teaching me to say no and for teaching me how to say I'm sorry. I stared at the line for a long time, not because the card was nice, but because each stroke came from the road my son had walked. Serena wasn't there. A small envelope sat in the Bly's corner. I didn't ask, but Marcus explained. It's the separation letter. I don't want to hate anyone, I just want to stop at the right time. I nodded, proud not because he ended the marriage, but because he chose the right thing, not the easy thing. Victor and Elaine were now just faded names in memory. They didn't show up anywhere. As for the Mile High Chronicle, the paper that smeared me, they'd pinned at the top a formal correction by Paige Larkin titled, "A Belated Truth." A misunderstood man only wanted his reputation back. Below was a brief apology, enough for me to close that chapter without another word. I lifted my glass and clinked his, lightly. This year, the tamales are better than your mom's. Marcus laughed. I'm pretty sure you're lying. I winked. No, your mom heard me. We both laughed. It wasn't forced like last year. It was warm, the kind of warmth you get when time returns something more valuable than money. Peace. After dinner, Marcus told me about work. He's now an official site supervisor, no sponsor needed. He's saving up for a small place, not to show off, but to live real. I listened, pride rising quiet and steady inside me. "Dad," Marcus said, "I'm going to sell the old house, take the loss, and be done." I nodded. "You can make money back, Marcus. Losing respect, you don't get that back so easily. You chose right." I took out my old notebook, the one I called the repayment book. Each page held amounts, lines of obligated kindness that once tied me down. Only one blank page remained. I wrote slowly, "No to toxic debts of the heart, yes to true family." Then I folded it, set it on the table, and spoke to Nadine in my heart. "I'm not a walking wallet anymore, sweetheart. I'm a father, the real kind." Marcus smiled. "You still talk to Mom like before," I said. "When you love deep enough, you'll understand some people leave, but they stay in every decision you make." We sat a while longer, talking about the past not as wounds but as lessons. The memories that once hurt became pieces that helped me know myself, my limits, my self-respect, and how to love without losing who I am. "Before I left," Marcus said, "I took tomorrow off. I want to visit Mom's grave with you." I nodded, said nothing, just patted his shoulder. Outside, snow began to fall thin, soft, and calm, like a blessing from the sky. I stepped onto the porch. The wind was cold on my face, but my chest felt warm. The snow-covered path ahead didn't carry the heavy footprints of last year. Only a long stripe of streetlight, like it was leading me forward, lighter, clearer, truer. I looked back at Marcus standing in the doorway, hand raised, the golden kitchen behind him and Nadine's photo on the shelf. I knew winters ahead wouldn't be empty anymore. We'd found each other again, not by blood, but by respect and honesty. Thank you for staying with me all the way to the end of this story. If you've ever been pushed out of your own home, stood outside the doorway where your laughter was supposed to be, tell me in the comments. Every true story is a small light in a long winter, guiding the one who speaks and warming those still finding their way home. Where are you listening from? Houston, Atlanta, Toronto, or a corner I've never seen? Leave your city so this small kitchen knows that, no matter the miles, we're sitting by the same fire. And if this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so when I open the door to tell the next one, you'll still have a front row seat, right beside a steaming cup of tea. Thank you for keeping the light in this home from ever going out.